Hi, it's Tom from Castle here. Great to be here today with James from C-Level Ops, discussing, I think last time we discussed, the guilt around sales and the fact that you really need that commitment, the awareness that you actually want to improve. Two, prioritizing that. And then three, coming up with a plan. And I think that's what the discussion today is. Where do you start? You want to grow, you want to build a sales engine. Where do we start? But before we start, I guess I'll just get James to introduce himself and C-Level.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me again, and hopefully we can share some more wisdom and help some more people out with this whole challenge that is sales. From C-Level, we're a TSP coaching firm that helps improve operational maturity across the business and develop leaders inside it. So I get to see a lot of MSP owners, a lot of different departments of different sized businesses, and hopefully we can share some information today that's going to help people get unstuck or take the next step and keep working towards what they're trying to achieve. And we had a great session last time around, like you said, that guilt around being a salesperson. Sales is a dirty word, but if we've taken that step forward and we're embracing it and we're starting to do some activity, what are the key areas that we need to sort of think about in sales, and as we take steps towards perhaps your first hire, creating a department. And we're going to go into a lot more detail in the future around this kind of stuff, because there's no way we're going to cover this in 15 minutes, but this is our sort of introduction to what to start looking at it, and start to plan moving forward. So there's a few things to look at, and I think the place that I always start when I'm coaching people, even if they've got a team of salespeople, even if we're a bit larger and we've got this sales team, is start to look at, like, what are we actually selling?
Great question.
You get to work with a lot of MSPs. How many that come and talk to you have that nailed and have a clear portfolio of what they do?
The ones that are succeeding certainly are doing it, but yeah, 100%. That question, too often it comes down to products and not really tying to who their customer is and what their problem is. I completely agree. It feels like quite a gap that everyone builds this shiny marketing website with the different pillars that they saw. But in terms of actually truly understanding this is our solution offering, it feels like that there's quite a big gap there for a lot of MSPs.
It's a great opportunity. Like we all hear about white space all the time.
Yep.
And this is where it evolved from. Like even that really high level, really successful product portfolio, solution portfolio, client journeys, very few are doing that, but very few are even mapped out what they sell in terms of products across clients and their standardized stacks, and then being able to view it. And that's empowering on its own. Like just that one step, even if you're a sole principal-led salesperson and you're having to deliver all that sort of sales activity, even for one person, it's game changing, because in the process of doing it, it's not difficult. This is the thing, like, just to start, like when I coach people and they don't have this, I have a simple spreadsheet and we work out what we sell across the top, what are our clients, and then check it off. And just from that starting point of not even knowing all the deep ins and outs of the solutions or the products, just knowing that we do these helps to segment it off. And from there, that's when we can flow into our sales tools, and all of a sudden you can build quote templates. So now, I know it's a bit more difficult at the moment with the stock challenges and everything, but when this all settles down again, we can just sell our one type of workstation and have a repeatable quote. So rather than having to go back to old quotes and then making mistakes because we missed things or we had something in that the client doesn't actually need, all of a sudden it's like a 5-minute process to get a accurate quote out each and every time for these routine jobs. And I know as a principal-led owner for sales, that's a lot of time saved because we often get caught up in that backlog of, oh, these clients have asked for things and I haven't got the quotes out and they keep following me up, and then I make mistakes and that causes more issues. Where if we have this pre-built out, it's just a tick and a flick, bang, 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 done, done, done. And we can spend like a morning getting out our quotes for the week, and then we're free to do the rest of our things. Like, so that one exercise opens up so much just on that level. And we'll explore that stuff a lot more deeper in the future. But it also expands out that you're starting to create a system that will enable someone else to jump in.
Yep, 100%.
Because that's when I typically coach owners through this and we create a system. When we're talking about sales, most people think, well, I need to go hire a hunter. And this opens up the next conversation around like understanding the different functions inside the sales team. And the problem in being small business, if you've got someone in sales, they're going to have to do it all.
Yep.
And typically that fails because we haven't set up some of that structure, like having the white space in our product sets defined. But then it's also then not necessarily the right personality to do different roles. So, Tom, you've been around this a long time. What are the functions inside sales? Just to put you on the spot.
No, good question. So I guess in a way, the way that I like to sort of segment the sales activities, you think about it, align it to the funnel of what a customer goes through when they're engaging with you. So I guess at the top of the funnel, you obviously have your marketing activities, which shouldn't be forgotten, by the way. Like the marketing activities are key, which obviously lead into that hunting. I'll call it hunting. Now, it has many different names and different sort of roles, but the person that is proactively getting leads, so not your inbound leads, there's that hunting function. We then think there's a very different, even though it is sales, there's a very different function around closing and nurturing leads. Often that's called an account exec in bigger MSPs, but that person that has that is doing the scoping, understand what the customer wants, getting them from that first touch point to close. And then importantly, as you discussed, what is MSP? It's a relationship business and it's a long-term relationship. And often a lot of growth can come from the sort of fourth pillar, which is account management at its core, which is about nurturing and growing accounts financially, in terms of the relationships you have with leaders. That's how we like to break it down. And I think people implicitly get that breakdown, I guess. And I think this, to be honest, comes back to a topic that it keeps coming back to. When you're principal-led sales, you have this knowledge and capability to play across all sides of that funnel, right? You're passionate about talking about your product, so when you're having that first meeting, it oozes out of you, even though you're not using the exact right sales techniques. Same with account management, right? You rocking up to that QBR, you're so knowledgeable about your solution, your team, what you do, that you can do it in a lot of it intuitively. But I think coming back to that whole mapping your solution set, there's also an element of actually mapping each of those stages and functions. And that's probably the biggest gap we see when someone wants to grow and hire, is that it goes from founder has everything in their head to here's a function, generate leads and close for me. And that's the starting point. When I guess you can talk to this, there's quite a big gap between that process being in someone's head and someone landing on day one and being able to succeed, right?
100%. And it's like anything in a small business. When you're the owner, you just implicitly know you can get away with a lot just because your authority or the expertise that you've got, and like you said, it just oozes out. But those four functions are like super important. And on it, obviously, what underlays all of that is our sales support, our sales admin as well.
Yes. Yep.
And that's usually where I start with coaching clients through, because it's very difficult if it's all in your head to hire any one of those four functions that you spoke about, because you don't really know what they are. They're all, because you don't know the pipeline and the steps and the process that goes towards it. It's all blended into one. It's the same as when I relate it back to service, that everyone mashes triage and dispatch and troubleshooting all into the one function, and that's why we cause so many problems. It's the same in sales. If we see it all as the same thing, that it's very difficult to achieve any success in it repeatedly outside of one individual that just sort of does it randomly. So that mapping out is really important. But I think for most owners, starting to get success with sales is actually start with the sales admin. If we start with what our solution sets are, we've got our sales tool set up to be repeatable. We're utilizing our PSAs to manage opportunities and do the sales handoff, and then can do procurement. All of a sudden, you can take a lot of those day-to-day repeatable processes and give it to someone that can do it and achieve it and free more time up. We mentioned in our last session around, like, the biggest challenge for owner-led sales is time and priority. A lot of this is really simple to do. Sales admin is actually quite simple once the structure's there. So if we build that, we can hire someone in to deliver that, and they will do it a lot more consistently than the owner, and a lot better than the owner. There's a lot of people that are fantastic at sales admin. And often what I'm doing these days, because it's difficult to hire staff, most people that are doing owner-led sales don't really have sales targets, and they're not really tracking sales that well, and we don't know the possibilities. I'm usually recommending going to the Philippines and getting a Philippine resource, a cost-effective person. And when we talk about it, your average MSP that's probably like about 3 million revenue, they probably manage about 2,000 endpoints. I speak very simply around, well, even if we make proactive workstation sales repeatable, that this sales admin is taking on and generating, you will pay for them and in spades by just that one activity. Sales is a very easy thing to base on resourcing, because it's very clearly a dollar game of do X, Y, Z, get that many closes, get that many approvals. You know what the money is straight away. So that sort of sales admin resource in the Philippines are really, really good people, really talented and really experienced. Usually $3,000 to $3,500 a month. You can get more junior people, but those sort of resources, often I've seen a lot of success where they actually help the owner create the structure and the process, because they've worked in larger organizations and know sales. So there's also that help. They might not directly be able to write the processes out and know exactly how it should work in an MSP, but sales is sales is sales, no matter where you go. There's those core basic principles that are repeated in every industry of that high level flow. So that's often where I do that sort of first toe in the water. That's usually a lot more successful, because the owners understand that a lot more, because it's a lot more like doing the tech side service delivery, because it is a lot more like linear processes.
And it brings a discipline as well, right? In terms of you're starting, even if you're not fully mapping out exactly the sales funnel and stages, etc. As you start to have to structure your products and your agreements in a way that aligns to your solutions, so you're getting that white space view, or having your quoting and your standard kind of standardizing your stack and automating those processes, it's actually bringing a bit of discipline to the process that then you can build on top of with when you start to think about the actual customer engagement and kind of more strategic side, right? When you start to think about how do I grow account management? How do I grow pipeline? How do I close more sales?
100%. If you take a step back, and I mentioned the numbers before, but like just humor me with a smaller MSP that has about 600 workstations that they manage. Let's assume that we do it have 5-year life cycles, because that's what most MSPs do these days. Over 5 years, we need to replace 120 to keep them in their lifespan each year. That's 10 workstations a month. If we're selling them for maybe $600-800 margin, including labor and the upsell to the 5-year warranty and all of whatever else comes, let's just say 800 for simplicity. That's $8,000 in margin each and every month. Most people aren't doing that consistently. So that discipline that you're talking about, just that one item, if you get that discipline on it, then you expand it out to switches and firewalls and UPS and like all just those base infrastructure type things. What would that do to your business? Significant amounts, so that sort of first step does have a real impact real quick. And like you said, you are building that discipline and that foundation and that base to then start focusing on the next sort of functions. And typically, the next step would be account management.
Yeah.
So, you know,
can I just call out there, James? Like I think for a lot of people that would be a surprising answer. In the sense of a lot of MSPs, you hear it a lot. I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads. Like, I think I'll just call that out. I think it's interesting that you've said account management next, because you know often in the industry you hear that first step is actually I need a hunter. You know, I need more leads.
I agree, and I'd probably take it even a step further. Most people default to marketing because they're not comfortable with sales, so let's just throw marketing at it and automate it, and we'll grow magically from there. The reason why I say account management after we've got our engine going is we've got a lot of clients already. Like from my experience, that sort of $2 to $3 million MSP has typically got 100 clients on the books. Right, we've already done a lot to get the client base that we've got. Now, obviously that client base varies. It's usually the top 5 to 8 are generating the 80% of the margin and the revenue. So to me, that already says there's a whole lot of opportunity. That what about the rest of the 92? And I often hear from owners like, oh, all these small ones, I've tried in the past, I haven't engaged. So that means two things. Either haven't engaged properly, or we've engaged properly and they're not the right fit. So it gives us opportunities either way, and that understanding that client base and that being able to sort of tier them out from revenue base already starts to create some insights. And now an owner's time might not be best spent on going and seeing 100 clients. There's an opportunity there to bring an account manager in and maybe split 50-50. Maybe they're the right person to go and learn with the bottom 50. And if the clients leave, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's not actually affecting our profitability at all. Yeah. But a lot of the time I see when we've got the right structure in place, we know what we do and sell, actually that new fresh face starts different conversations and often is driven to get the old clients converted, because there's no baggage. I don't care if they've been around for 10 years. Like, you've told me I need to get them on the new plans or not. And there's a lot of growth that comes from that. Same as in that 100-person client base, we haven't really gone about a good regime of increasing prices and managing their agreements. So both those activities are going to lift revenue and pay for this account manager most of the time. And again, we're building that base and foundation and understanding those standards. And you can see from if we do the sales admin and then the account manager, we're getting growth. And I've seen this happen a lot. I've worked with a client that was like $2 million. They were barely profitable. One month they'd be like break even, the next they'd be like 6%, and then the next month they'd be 3%. And by focusing on like these steps and sales, they actually did double their business in I think it was 3.5 years by focusing on those activities in their own client base. They didn't go out and chase new clients. They just grew what they already had because it's a lot easier. Like all those 100 people, they know who we are. They're already engaged. They're already willing to hear from us.
Yep.
And it doesn't take a whole lot of money to actually do anything with them. Yeah, we might have to hire an account manager to be able to see more people, but that's not that big of an expense in the scheme of things for the returns that we could get. And if we already,
100%. I've got to jump in there, James. Like in terms of the highest performing, highest growth, 30% quarter on quarter organizations that we see, and this is one thing I'll call out, that that sales admin and getting your structure right and automating and removing the work, I guess, from your day, what that allows you to do is actually start thinking about your strategy here. So you can actually, and this is something we work a lot with MSPs around, is what is actually that opportunity in your client base? Like actually articulate it, understand it, put a dollar figure against it. And often what we see is that, as you said, those existing clients, if you actually understand what you're selling, who you're not currently servicing, and where that opportunity is, there's so much potential. And also the other benefit, by the way, and the reason they get the 30% growth is because if you have this discipline of growing accounts over time, often when you bring in a client, you'll be servicing them in one way, but 3 years later, that agreement set and product set and project set look completely different, right? If you have a discipline where you actually consistently bring in a customer in 3 years' time, you've grown what they're doing from an IT, like from a spend perspective, and you're servicing them, and they have more of your stack and your solution set, the return on every sales activity is much higher. So you've got your 5-year time horizon to double. Well, if you're bringing in that lead that's 10K, let's say a great lead, bringing in 10K a month, you've got a big whale. If you know that can even grow past that with good account management practices, that's how you get that kind of growth on growth perspective, that kind of dynamic, right? Whereas the alternative is and I think we're talking about this as a kind of a choice, if you're just so focused on getting whatever leads you can, there's a kind of it's a lot harder just from a pure activity perspective, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't grow at the same rate over time. I guess that's a lot of what we try and do is articulate and calculate that for MSP owners, because if you can just basically come up with a strategy and believe it, and you actually get the whole team around that, it's actually really energizing, right? That kind of aspect of, we're going to do account management in a really structured way. It helps everybody.
It does. And I think the big thing like there that you mentioned is being able to view and articulate your pipeline. Like I mentioned earlier, like just the workstations and like the sort of money that you could look at. If you did that for all your white space over a period of time, most MSPs already have millions and millions of dollars in that pipeline over 5 years.
Yep.
And it's empowering, it's empowering, and the mindsets change when you start laying it out like that. And then like you said, it allows you to plan and strategize and work out what the next steps are. And you might not have to look at new leads for quite a long time, and you get a lot better results. And I think I think this is where we work in our next topic and go towards like, how do we, like, what is actually account management and what we need to do, because it's a logical next step. So I think we could talk about all of these topics for all day, but yeah, maybe we split it off to the next one.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to stop. So like summarize the conversation, it's from last conversation, you've got the want, you're prioritizing it. Where do you start? And I guess the discussion today is get your basics first down pat, right? That sales, whether it's sales admin role, but also the way that you're structuring your PSA and some of your processes. Get the basics down pat so you can free yourself up to actually be strategic. And I guess from our side, it's prompting you to not just think that the solution is marketing, and leads. Like, have a look at your current book, and I think you'll find there's a lot of opportunity inside there if you have a structured approach. Which plug Castle, this is all of what we're about. So I'm excited you said that, James. But truly believe it. I think it's a once MSP looks at that data, you can see a lot of the eyes bulge, right? This is a lot simpler, easier, less costly, and a more sustainable way to grow.
Yeah, and the final thought for me with the whole marketing side and the hunting is, if you don't have a strategy and don't have a plan for it, it's always going to fail. And if you want to throw random amounts of money out there, give it to me and I'll randomly give you money back over time as well. Because that's basically what it is. Like, it sounds really cynical, and it's not the marketing people's fault. It's just that we don't typically have a strategy and a way to get into generating a lot of leads because of the way people buy MSP. It's relationship based, and it needs to be a lot more specific. We can't do the shotgun marketing approach that everywhere else is. So start within and you'll get a lot better results straight up.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for the time. Next time we'll get deep into account management, what it actually means, and looking forward to it, James.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Thanks for everyone listening.